Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to explore a pretty fascinating and honestly highly challenging excerpt from the autobiography of Reverend Sun Myung Moon. We're looking specifically at a chapter that has this incredibly vivid title. It's called To Love is to Give and Forget.
Right. And before we really jump into the mechanics of that, because our source material originates from a figure who is widely known for, his immense political and religious influence globally, we need to be incredibly explicit right at the top.
Yeah, strictly neutral, completely impartial.
Exactly. We are not endorsing any of the viewpoints presented in this material,
Hmm.
nor are we taking sides on any of the politically charged or controversial themes associated with the author or his organizations.
Right.
Our goal is simply to act as your guides to the philosophy itself. We are here to impartially unpack the allegories, the concepts, and the internal logic exactly as they're presented in this specific chapter, so you can just understand the architecture of these ideas.
Okay, let's unpack this. Think about when you go to a theater, right? There's that specific electric moment right before the heavy velvet curtain goes up.
Oh, I love that feeling.
Yeah, and the crew is frantically sweeping the stage. Actors are nervously whispering their lines. Maybe someone is hastily taping a prop together. It's essentially, organized chaos behind the scenes.
It's messy.
It's messy, it's human, and it's full of friction. But the second that curtain rises and the warm stage lights hit, the chaos completely vanishes. The actors are smiling. The painted world looks incredibly real. And you, sitting in the audience, only see this flawless, unbroken performance.
Right, because you willingly suspend your disbelief. That pristine illusion is kind of the whole point of the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But imagine for a second, though, that this wasn't a play. What if that stage was your own living room, and the audience you were performing for was your children?
Wow.
Because this excerpt establishes a massive foundational premise by demanding that the absolute non-negotiable rule of your home is that the curtain never ever falls.
Yeah, the philosophy here, it doesn't start small at all. It basically bypasses conventional sociology entirely. It frames the family not just as a biological unit, but as the only institution actually created by God.
The only one.
Right. And by framing the family as the sole divinely created institution, it instantly elevates the living room above governments, above schools, even above organized religions.
Which is a huge claim.
It is. The home is defined as a school of love and quite literally the base camp for world peace.
And that elevation completely redefines the roles within that school, doesn't it? Parents are positioned as basically a second god to their children.
Yeah, the logic in the text suggests that if you ask young children who they like better, God or mommy and daddy, and they choose their parents, it inherently means they also love God.
Because the earthly parents are meant to be the physical, tangible avatars of divine love for the child.
Precisely.
Which brings us directly back to that intense theater metaphor. Because parents hold this almost divine status, the framework lays out a remarkably strict operational rule for marital conflict.
Oh, the conflict rule. This is intense.
It is. It acknowledges human friction, like couples will bicker, get angry, they'll face tremendous stress. But the moment a child enters the room, all of that fighting must stop immediately.
Instantly.
Right. It doesn't matter how furious a spouse is, they must instantly pivot to relating to their partner in total peace. The children must grow up believing their family is filled with uninterrupted joy and that their parents literally never fight.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychological implication of this standard. The argument is that the kingdom of heaven, it cannot be found in incredible wealth or fame or political power.
It has to start at home.
Exactly. It exclusively begins in the family. So the facade of unbroken peace isn't just about keeping kids comfortable. It's a necessary, highly disciplined training mechanism.
Like an incubator.
Yeah, you have to model absolute peace so the fragile organism of the next generation can internalize it as their baseline reality and eventually replicate it on a global scale.
But wait, I have to push back on the practical reality of this. Because doesn't modern psychology tell us the exact opposite?
Oh, absolutely it does.
Right. Today's consensus is that children actually need to see healthy conflict resolution. If parents hide all friction, aren't they just teaching their kids that negative emotions are shameful?
That's the standard modern view, yeah.
So demanding that parents immediately suppress all visible conflict. That feels like an incredibly heavy, almost superhuman burden. Like you're furious about a potential bankruptcy, the door creaks open, your toddler walks in, and suddenly you have to smile and project absolute divine harmony.
It is an immense psychological burden, no question. But the paradigm here completely rejects modern psychological consensus in favor of a divine ideal.
It just tosses it out.
Right. Exposing children to marital conflict is viewed not as authentic transparency, but as shattering their foundational understanding of the universe.
Because you're their second god.
Exactly. If the parents are the second god, then witnessing them tear each other apart is akin to watching the cosmos fracture. The burden on the parents is heavy precisely because the stakes are astronomically high.
You're artificially controlling the environment.
Yes, removing all the toxins of conflict so the child's worldview can grow strong enough to eventually foster world peace.
But how do you actually train a human to possess that level of superhuman emotional control? Like, how do you flip that switch?
Well, the author argues that this isn't an intellectual skill you learn from a textbook, it's a primal instinct.
And to prove it, the narrative doesn't look to, a serene mountaintop or a quiet monastery. It looks to a completely unexpected observation made in a really gritty environment.
Yeah, it's a striking juxtaposition. To illustrate this ultimate ideal of parental sacrifice, the setting shifts to the author's time serving a sentence in Danbury Federal Prison.
We go from the ethereal concept of the kingdom of heaven straight into a prison labor detail.
Right into the mud.
Exactly. Inmates are using a massive bulldozer to level a slope and build a tennis court. It's a harsh, loud industrial environment.
And then the weather turns.
Yeah, a stretch of heavy rain hits, halting the work for 20 consecutive days. And when the weather finally clears and the inmates go back out to resume bulldozing, they discover something hidden right in the middle of this construction zone.
A waterfowl had created a nest among some water weeds, mere meters from where the federal prisoners walked for exercise.
And the camouflage was incredible, right?
Incredibly sophisticated. The bird's feathers blended seamlessly with the surrounding weeds, and its eggs were patterned to look exactly like pieces of scattered black gravel.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just the physical camouflage that stands out, it's the bird's behavioral tactic.
Oh, the way she moves.
Yes. When the mother bird would return to the nest after hunting for food, she never flew directly to her chicks. She would deliberately land a significant distance away and then walk the rest of the route on foot.
To hide the location.
Exactly. And she approached from a different direction every single time to ensure no one could track her path. She is acting almost like a highly trained secret agent running counter-surveillance.
It's amazing.
She's doing evasive maneuvers, dropping fake trails, checking her blind spots, all while surrounded by bulldozers and inmates.
And her defensive maneuvers escalated dramatically if those tactics failed.
Right, if they got too close.
If a prisoner did manage to walk too close to the nest, this tiny bird would literally fly out and violently chase the human away with her sharp beak, completely disregarding the massive size difference and the inherent danger to her own life.
So a bird attacking a bulldozer or a federal inmate isn't just a quirky animal fact in this framework. It's a profound moral lesson.
It goes far beyond instinct. For this philosophy, that bird is the ultimate living blueprint for parental love. It serves as uncalculated proof of true love.
Uncalculated.
Yes. The willingness to sacrifice her own life without a single moment of hesitation, without any mental calculation of risk versus reward, is the exact standard demanded of human parents.
You just do it.
A parent must go the path of love no matter how physically or emotionally difficult it becomes, prepared to literally bury their own life for the sake of that love. The bird doesn't pause to think, if I attack this giant human, I might die. It only thinks of protecting the whole, which in this case is its offspring.
And that animal instinct bridges us directly into how this philosophy views human relationships, specifically through the concept of give and forget.
Right, the core thesis.
Which might be the most challenging intellectual leap in the entire deep dive. The uncalculated sacrifice of the bird is the perfect setup for understanding what it actually takes to be that second god in the living room.
Because the framework demands a radical shift in how we typically view human interaction. It states that the essence of love is to cast aside any thought of having others live for yourself.
Which is hard enough on its own.
It is. It is to live entirely for the sake of others and give for the benefit of the whole.
Standard altruism tells us to give. But this takes it a massive step further. True love means you give, and then you forget that you have given.
That's the key, the forgetting.
You completely wipe the memory of your own generosity or your own sacrifice so that you can continue to give joyfully without ceasing. The prime imagery used here is the joy a mother feels when she takes her infant in her arms and nurses them.
And the text says parents will suffer for their children until it feels like, quote, their bones are going to melt away.
Melting bones. Wow.
Yeah, and yet, if it is true love, they never feel that the work is difficult. They give until their bones melt, and then they forget the melting.
Let's pause and really look at human nature for a second, because this is incredibly difficult to reconcile with how we actually operate, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's practically alien to us.
Let's use an analogy. In almost every human relationship, we naturally maintain what I'd call a karmic ledger.
A ledger, I like that.
It's an invisible spreadsheet in our minds where we keep track of who owes whom. It's a survival mechanism. I took up the trash 3 times this week, so you owe me a dinner.
Or, I paid for your college tuition, so you owe me respect and compliance.
Exactly. We are accountants of our own affection. We track reciprocity to ensure we aren't being exploited. But this text is demanding we just entirely burn that ledger.
This raises an important question. If human beings are biologically and psychologically wired to keep score, what is the purpose of demanding we burn the ledger?
Right. Why force it?
Well, by demanding that we cast aside that ledger, the philosophy is explicitly defining divine love. True love, according to this paradigm, begins with God and comes to us from God. To love like this is to transcend standard human transactions and biological survival instincts.
So it's not just supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be alien to our baseline nature. We're being asked to act unnaturally.
Unnaturally, but transformatively. The suggestion is that this level of absolute selflessness, the total erasure of the ego's memory, is the only mechanism that transforms mundane, bone-melting suffering into pure joy.
By erasing the memory.
Think about the mechanics of resentment. If you remember your sacrifice, you inevitably build resentment when you aren't paid back.
Because the ledger's unbalanced.
Exactly. Resentment is the friction that destroys the family. If you intentionally forget your sacrifice, you only experience the joy of the giving itself, much like the mother nursing her infant. The memory of the pain is overwritten by the joy of the connection.
The ledger is what causes the pain.
And burning it is what causes the joy.
When you lay out the mechanics of resentment like that, it starts to make terrifying sense.
Yeah.
But what happens when a family actually achieves this?
It scales up.
Let's say a family successfully burns their karmic ledgers, they suppress their conflicts for the sake of the children, and they hit this incredibly high bar of give and forget love. The philosophy doesn't just leave us in the living room enjoying a peaceful Sunday.
No, not at all.
It scales up from the micro-family unit to some massive societal implications.
Once the family achieves this state, it becomes what the author calls a bundle of love. And the implications for how families are formed and how society operates change entirely.
Give me an example of how that changes things.
Well, for instance, the excerpt touches on the concept of arranged marriages, which is framed here through the lens of parental grace rather than societal control.
Now, that's a concept that clashes heavily with modern ideas of individual autonomy. How does an arranged marriage fit into a philosophy of uncalculated love? Because usually, it looks like a transaction of power.
To understand the internal logic, you have to look at the mechanism we just discussed. If the parents have genuinely operated as a second god, and if they have truly mastered the give and forget love where they have melted their bones and forgotten their sacrifices.
And the child trusts them completely.
Yes, the child's natural response is absolute unshakable trust. The arranged marriage isn't a transaction of power. It is the ultimate extension of this protective, selfless love.
Because the ledger is gone.
Right. The child is so trusting of the parent's uncalculated love that when a spouse is found for them, the child should naturally respond, "If you had not found such a spouse for me, I don't know what I would have done."
I see. It requires a lifetime of the parents proving they have absolutely no ulterior motives.
Exactly.
And when you have multiple generations operating on this exact same frequency of selflessness, you create that bundle of love. When the text talks about unpacking this bundle, I'm picturing almost a matryoshka doll of selflessness.
That's a perfect visual.
You open the nation, and inside is the community. You open the community, and inside is the family. You open the family, and inside are these individuals who have completely erased their egos for one another.
And the text says you unpack this bundle in the kingdom of heaven, and wonderful parents, beautiful children, and benevolent grandparents leap out.
So the mere word family in this state represents an environment where every single member is living entirely for the sake of the others.
The family becomes the physical space where divine love overflows into the real world.
So what does this all mean for the world outside the front door? Because the author draws this incredibly direct, unbroken line from a mother bird feeding her chicks in a prison yard to a parent melting their bones for their child, all the way to a citizen interacting with their nation.
It's all connected.
How does a peaceful living room literally translate to a peaceful globe?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the ultimate architectural vision. World peace is not a policy issue.
It's not.
No, it cannot be legislated. It's not achieved through international treaties or economic sanctions or clever political maneuvering. It must be grown organically from the ground up.
Starting in the living room.
The family isn't just a quaint metaphor for society. It is the literal, inescapable building block. It is the sociological DNA.
So if you raise a child without a karmic ledger, they operate fundamentally differently when they leave the house.
Precisely. Think about a person raised in a transactional environment entering a corporate boardroom or a political legislature. They negotiate based on what they can get, keeping score, protecting their ego.
Their ledger is wide open.
Exactly. Now imagine a person who grew up in the school of love, who internalized the give and forget framework. When they enter that same boardroom or legislature, they negotiate for the benefit of the whole. They don't keep score.
You just give.
Therefore, if the base unit, the family, is full of true, uncalculated love, the individual cells of society are healthy. If the family is peaceful, the nation will inherently become peaceful.
Wow.
The exact same mechanism of true love that makes a parent sacrifice for a child is the literal mechanism that allows a citizen to give up their life for their country.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, pulling apart the intricate layers of this philosophy.
We really have.
We started by looking at the immense, almost crushing psychological pressure placed on parents to act as a second god to their children, maintaining a flawless backstage facade of peace to create an incubator for a perfect worldview.
And we then explored how that staggering ideal is mirrored in the gritty reality of a Danbury federal prison labor camp, where a tiny water bird uses tactical genius and fearless, uncalculated sacrifice to protect her nest.
Proving that true love requires absolute zero calculation of risk.
Right.
Then we discuss the ultimate philosophical challenge laid out by the author, which is the absolute necessity of loving so completely that you not only give until your bones melt, but you entirely forget your own sacrifices, basically burning your karmic ledger.
Which ultimately allows a family to become a bundle of love, that matryoshka doll of selflessness that scales up cell by cell to create global peace.
It's quite a journey.
It is a deeply interconnected vision of human potential that forces the reader to fundamentally re-examine their own definitions of generosity, duty, and the mechanics of resentment.
It absolutely does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final lingering thought to mull over, something that pushes the boundaries of everything we just discussed.
Okay.
The implications of burning that karmic ledger are incredibly vast.
Because the ledger is tied directly to who we are.
Exactly. Here's the question I want you to sit with. If the absolute highest form of love requires us to give and then completely forget that we have given, what actually happens to our sense of personal identity?
That's a huge question.
Our identities, our egos, they're largely built on our memories, right? The memory of what we've endured, the hardships we've overcome, the sacrifices we've made, and how we've helped others.
Our story.
Yeah, our story. So if all those memories of our own sacrifices are intentionally erased in the pursuit of true love, do we become purely vessels of love at the complete cost of our individuality? Or is letting go of that individuality, that constant exhausting scorekeeping, the very thing that actually sets us free?
Wow. It brings us right back to the theater we started in, honestly. When the actor fully forgets themselves and forgets they are even performing, the illusion transcends the stage and becomes reality.
When the curtain goes up, who are you really performing for? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into such complex and thought-provoking material. We warmly invite you to keep questioning, keep examining your own ledgers, and keep exploring.
Thank you for listening.